Hi, I'm Ashleigh Wehmeyer, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Real Estate Uncorked. And while it may look like I'm coming to you from some European market, I'm actually coming to you from right here in Springfield, Virginia. Welcome to European Country Living. When you walk in here, you really feel like you've stepped into a European market. The owner, Matt, who's been in this business for 20 years in Germany, first of all, and then here in the US. He had a shop on King Street, and now he's here in this amazing space, frankly, in Springfield. It is a warehouse. It makes you feel like you're on the hunt for hidden treasures. And it really is a place that you should be coming to regularly, because Matt actually goes over to Europe every 2 to 3 months, so there's always something new to discover. I love their vast selection of different kinds of items. They have furniture, they have rugs, glassware, charcuterie boards. You know I like that. I'm going to be getting one before I go home today. So come on over. They're open from 10 to 4 on Saturdays. I know that you'll be happy that you came. You may have seen a cute, cute little dog, Roxy, running around, and she's here and she's adorable and so much fun. Come on down, and remember when you do to tell them that you heard about it on Real Estate Uncorked. So Steve, what are you going to talk to us about today?
Today, what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about some of the things that folks should be considering when they're selecting a partner for a home renovation.
All right.
Yeah, sound good?
Sounds good.
Great.
Well, I'm happy to be joined at European Country Living with Steve Scholl of Bowa Builders, and they're headquartered in McLean. And fun fact, Steve, is that they did the renovation on the house that we bought, and we love everything that they've done. So I thought it would be great to have Steve come tell us kind of what we should be looking for, what we need to know about remodeling our homes. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Steve?
Yeah, sure. So Steve Scholl with Bowa. I'm a project leader. What I do is meet with clients, have a conversation about their goals, their budgets, their timelines, and then come up with a game plan that suits their needs and deliver an amazing client experience along the way.
All right, so he's going to just give us some great tips. So I have a little something for us today. I wanted to keep it European.
So what are we drinking?
So we are going to have a lovely bottle of rosé champagne that my sweet neighbor gifted to me for Christmas. I've been waiting for a special occasion, so I figured this was a perfect opportunity.
Thank you, neighbor.
And so we're going to have French champagne, and we're going to have Swiss chocolate, and we're just going to keep it all European since we're in this lovely European setting that's right here in the middle of Springfield, Virginia. I'm often the champagne popper at parties, and people are afraid to do this, but you shouldn't be afraid. And I'm going to give you my little tip. You're not afraid to pop a champagne bottle,
I'm not afraid
No.
to pop a bottle or drink a bottle.
So all you do is you take, you undo the wire casing and you take it off. And I have to stand up for this because you kind of have to make sure that you're protecting yourself. And then you really just start to slowly turn the bottle and the cork in a different direction. And it pops just like that. And then this is another little tip. If you like to save your wine corks with the champagne corks, it's really fun to just put the little wire casing back on and throw it in your cork collector.
Nice.
Let's see if this French champagne's really better than others. Well, thanks for being here.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Very nice.
It is good, actually.
Yeah.
All right, France. So in my line of work as a realtor, I am often helping people buy homes that they are looking at what they could be when they buy them, and they maybe know that they're going to buy the home and then do some sort of update, upgrades, or renovation. So Steve, what are some things my buyers should be thinking about before they get into renovating their home?
Great question. Thank you. So a little bit of context. Typically what folks are thinking about is what's it going to look like, what's it going to cost, how long is it going to take. What they don't give equal weight to is who am I going to work with? And that's really important. What I have found over 40 years is that the most important thing is the fit. To be able to think about and identify the project itself, and then who's the best contractor to carry out that. And there are some things within that conversation that I'd like to flesh out a little bit, so that the audience knows what I know.
I've heard you talk about something like the big 3 plus 1. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the big 3 in my world is what's it going to look like, what's it going to cost, how long it's going to take.
Okay.
But that fourth one, who am I going to work with, is really important, and it informs those 3 questions of what it's going to look like, what it's going to cost, how long it's going to take.
So really, is that the first thing people should be thinking about?
No, the first thing is to identify the type of project, then the level of finish, and then who to work with.
So talk to us about how you identify the type of project.
Sure. There's 3 basic types of project, and they're kind of big categories, but I'm going to go high level here. So the first is cosmetic.
Okay.
The second is pull and replace, and the third is custom.
Okay.
So I'm going to use a master bathroom as an example.
Okay.
I should say that really what differentiates those 3 projects is a couple things. One, the cost. Another is the duration, meaning how long is the project going to take to complete.
Okay.
And then also, how long is that person going to be in that house? And that helps kind of shape the decision.
True.
So,
as a realtor, I can say that is true. And if you're looking at resale or it's going to be a rental for you may make different choices.
Exactly. If we go with the first one, which is cosmetic, let's say your buyer moves in and the master bathroom is maybe 6 or 7 years old, everything works fine, and the finishes are okay, but the paint color is not, or some of the fixtures are brass, and this particular person likes polished chrome or something like that.
Okay.
So a cosmetic update, low cost, high impact would be appropriate. If that same buyer moves in and the house is 20 years old and some of those finishes are failing, and by that I mean, the sink doesn't work right, showers get some issues, etc., but the design is great. It's totally functional, no change.
No change in the floor plan, the placement. Okay.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
That would be a pull and replace. Everything stays in the same location, but the finishes come out, probably including the tile and everything, and then all new materials go back.
Okay.
And so that's a certain budget and a certain type of contractor. And then the third category out of cosmetic, pull and replace, and custom is custom. And custom means looking at the space with a fresh set of eyes and wondering, is this the best use of the space? The builder thought so, but maybe the family doesn't think so. And is it big enough? Should we try to capture some adjacent space from a room next door? So you have cosmetic, kind of low cost, high impact, pull and replace, certainly more money and more time, and then custom, more time.
Really kicking it up a notch.
And more time in design selections, because it's a more thoughtful approach to it.
Great.
So those are the 3 types of project.
So you were saying the next thing to consider is budget.
Yeah. And that's a big concern of everybody. And there's three.
Especially if you just bought a house.
Yeah, exactly. So there are three elements to a budget. There's the scope of work, the level of finish, and the general contractor.
Scope of work, level of finish, and the general contractor.
Yeah, so the scope of work is how large is the project? How complex is it? Does it involve architecture, structural engineering, interior design? Obviously, if it's a cosmetic or a pull and replace, there's not a lot of that involved,
Sure.
but there is with custom. So scope of work, what are we doing and how challenging it is. Also, what room is it? Typically, the kitchen and the bathroom is the most expensive room in the house to renovate because of the cost of the fixtures, appliances and toilets and showers and
Has
things
the
like
most
that.
moving parts.
Yeah, and everything that's in the whole house can be found in those rooms. So lots of trade specialists involved.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and then the level of finish means what are the materials? And a good example would be tile. You can get a Subway backsplash tile for $5 a square foot. You can get a custom water jet, one-of-a-kind marble tile from Italy at $472 a square foot.
Well, that's a big difference.
Right. And it's what's appropriate for the house, the
Yeah.
project, how long
And the
you're gonna
market.
stay.
I mean, we do talk about that in real estate, that you don't want to over improve your house for the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you would love to be the most desirable house in the neighborhood, but
That's a good way of looking at it.
if you go too high end above, what the neighborhood is
Mm-hmm.
selling for, you're not going to get a good return on your investment. You
Yeah.
might really enjoy it though, so.
Right, and I'm glad you brought that up because we always have a return on investment conversation when it's appropriate, and usually it is. But what we also speak with our clients about is the ROE, which is return on enjoyment.
Oh, nice.
And if you're really into cooking, then maybe the Sub-Zero, the Viking, the Wolf makes sense in
Right.
a house where you wouldn't normally find that.
That's true. If it's a specialty, something that's special or important to you.
Exactly.
Yeah, it does make sense.
Yep, and we've all got something like that in our lives.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And then the last thing is the contractor you choose. And when you think about the contractor, think about cost and risk. They kind of go together.
Cost and risk.
And risk, yeah.
Okay.
Because if you use a smaller contractor for a larger project, you're going to have low cost, high risk. So a lot of times what happens is a contractor will stretch himself, right? He'll say yes to a project that maybe he's done once, or he's got 80 or 90% of the comfort level, and he says, I'll figure it out when I get there.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a real danger in hiring somebody who's not quite comfortable with the project, or whose company, this isn't their normal core business.
Right.
Now, the inverse is true. You don't want to hire a company where they're too much firepower for the project. I mean, you wouldn't hire my company for a handyman project or a
Sure.
simple pull and replace powder room, and we wouldn't allow that. We
Right.
would say you don't need us.
Right.
So
Well,
it's two
because-
sides of the same coin.
Because you are paying for expertise and, just all that Bowa brings to the table. If you're using somebody like Bowa, it costs more because you guys have a lot more expertise, certifications, all these sorts of things that you're bringing to the table. And so sometimes it really isn't the right fit. like
That's
you
right.
said.
A good friend of mine has a saying. He says that the level of sophistication of the project should be matched by the level of sophistication of the contractor. Shouldn't be less, shouldn't be more, should be that happy medium. So I think that's a good rule to live by.
I think so too. That sounds good. So what else is there to consider in a renovation that we haven't talked about yet?
I think level of finish is really important. And I would categorize that as, talking about tile, $5 a square foot on a backsplash might be totally appropriate. In other homes, it might not be. The analogy that I like to make is automobiles, because everybody's comfortable with that.
Right.
So if we looked at 3 automobiles, if we looked at a Honda, a Lexus, and a Lamborghini, right? Not necessarily good, better, best,
Right.
but what's appropriate. And in the real estate world, sometimes I say to folks, when you're thinking about the finishes for your kitchen or bathroom, think about your neighborhood, think about your street,
Right.
and think about your house.
Absolutely.
Right? And so if you live in a Lexus neighborhood, and in our area, maybe that's a house somewhere between 800,000 and $1 million, then it would be appropriate to do Lexus kitchen or a Lexus bathroom.
Right.
Now, not everything in the space needs to be Lexus, but you should have a good appliance suite.
Yeah.
Flooring should be right. It should be appropriate, whether you're going to stay for a long time or not. And that's really important to get the level of finishes right. And that's where great advice from a renovation partner, a designer on staff, could really benefit you. A lot of times somebody will see a tile they have to have and it's $50 a square foot.
Right.
And I'll say, I'm glad you love that, but your budget's $20 a square foot, so let's take this tile you like and see if we can find one in our budget that has some of the elements and that you find so attractive.
What's more common, or maybe what's best practice? Is it better for people to come in with an amount in mind that they can afford to spend? Or is it better, for them to come in with ideas about maybe what they want and then see what that might price out to and make adjustments from there? Can you do both, or is one better than the other?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's 2 ways to approach it. You can meet with somebody and say, I have a budget and it's X, and this is what I hope to achieve, right? And it's very rare that budgets and
Don't adjust.
are aligned.
Right.
So then you have to be open to the idea, and I say this sometimes to folks, I understand what you're looking to accomplish, and the budget you shared with me is about, you could probably get about 70% of your wish list with your budget. Is that okay? Is that a conversation we should continue? And most of the time they say yes. I'd be interested to know what my budget will allow. And then we have that conversation. The danger for folks, and this is getting back to the Better Business Bureau, is a lot of folks say, okay, give me back my glass of water, get out of my house, I'm going to interview somebody else, until somebody says yes to the budget. And that's dangerous.
Well, and you will always find a lowest bidder. You will always find somebody who's going to say, yeah, I can do that. Yeah.
Whether they can or they can't, they're going to say yes to it.
I've seen that work, sadly, in my line of work. Sometimes we go into a house that's going to be sold, and you can see that the renovations maybe weren't done to the degree of expertise that they should be. Worst one I think I saw was they had the floors refinished by somebody who was not proficient at refinishing floors. I have people, if you need floors refinished, come to me. But there was actually like pieces of hair and lint stuck in the floor refinishing, and not great.
That's
not optimal.
Right.
So it really matters. For some things, having a specific tradesperson is super important. Someone that specializes in floors or cabinetry, even painting. I've seen a big difference between people who are true painters. The way they prepare the walls is going to, affect how it looks afterwards. So.
Right. Yeah. So that leads us into our next conversation, which is the 3 types of contractors.
Oh, yes.
Right. And so I would describe them as handyman, specialty, and design build or design bid, meaning architect and GC. And so handyman is a very, very large category, and there are
broad term.
Yeah, there are really truly handymen who just do a little bit of everything, and they may be good or bad. And then there's handymen on steroids. Somebody who can do plumbing and electric and painting and drywall, and they're just
more robust
a real
offering.
handyman.
Yeah.
Yep. That type of contractor, is from completely unprofessional to very professional, and they are a great fit for a smaller project, like a cosmetic project, and the better might even be able to do some pull and replace work. And the risk with the handyman is if he's a solo proprietor, and he's on your project and he hurts his back, your project comes to a halt.
Oh, now that's something you don't think about.
No, and that's a danger.
Yeah.
The second category of contractor is what I call the specialty, right?
Okay.
And you just mentioned it. Somebody who only does flooring, somebody who only does painting, somebody who only does windows. That's a specialty.
Okay.
And you would hope and think and believe that because they only do one thing,
they're good at
they
it.
do it very well, and it's well priced.
Yeah.
And there are occasions where I will recommend a specialty, and I would include in that somebody like Long Fence. Long Fence has been doing fences for a long time. I don't know how well Long Fence does kitchens, but now there's a long kitchen and a long roof. So, they're branching out a little bit, and, maybe they're successful or not. But if I was going to call them, and I have in the past, I would call Long Fence for a fence.
Right.
The other branch of specialty is a kitchen and bath company, or a bath company. I'm thinking about Metropolitan Bath.
I was just thinking of them.
I don't refer too many people in my own world, but I do refer them because they've got a model and they stick to it.
Yeah.
And
Something to be said for that, for sure.
Yeah, and then the last category of contractor is the design build or the design bid model. And design bid is homeowner hires an architect, has a good conversation, set of plans are created, they're now the property of the homeowner, and then the homeowner shops those plans to general contractors and gets prices. The challenge with that is the homeowner is now in between the architect and the general contractor. So when the general contractor has questions, they go to the homeowner who's not really equipped to answer those questions, and the questions or the answers aren't on the plans. It can be a little sticky, and I don't recommend that for everybody.
So does working with Bowa, would that eliminate that problem? Do you guys do both together?
We do both.
Okay.
We do work with outside architects when it's in the best interest of the client, but we have an in-house architecture and interior design staff.
So it can
when the
be
client,
all in-house.
Yeah, and when the client comes to us, it is a one-stop shop. It's all in-house, and it's easier for us to answer the question, any design build firm, not just us, is when the client says, here's my budget and here's what I want, we can design to the budget.
Right.
Very rarely does a client say, this is what I want, find out how much it is and get back to me. There's a few clients like that, but most folks have a budget.
Well, and I could see where that could be a danger is if you're kind of in that aspirational phase and you go to an architect and you ask them to draw it all out for you, but then when you bring it to a general contractor, they say, well, this really isn't something that can be done for X.
It happens, I don't want to say every time, it happens a lot. and the data behind that is less than 50% of all the projects that get drawn get built.
Wow.
And the reason they don't get built is because they're wildly out of budget.
Yeah. It's all about expectations and controlling expectations and managing expectations and having the right fit, obviously. I'm going to really put that right fit because I know that's something you really talk about, is you're going to have a lot more success if you have the right fit in finish and, contractor right from the start.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think, if the homeowner takes some responsibility for the experience, there's going to be a less Better Business Bureau complaints. There's going to be less horror stories in the Washington Post because you don't want to find out after the project's completed that you picked the wrong person.
And God forbid you have to switch over. If you already didn't have an unlimited source of funds, that's not going to help your situation.
That's right.
To have to kind of start over or have somebody come fix things that maybe somebody else didn't do right in the first place.
And it's so much more expensive to do it over.
Yeah. Steve, if somebody is thinking about doing a renovation, what are your recommendations on where they should start the process at all?
Yeah, I think the first thing is to watch this video.
Yes.
and you know, check some boxes and understand where you are in the game. You know, that's how we say, I try to understand the game people are in.
Okay.
And then when you're choosing a contractor, there's a couple things to keep in mind, right? You want their core business to be the project that you're about to undertake, right?
You don't want them experimenting on your
project. Yeah, no tryouts. And that they have a record of success. You can do a little bit of research, right? So in research to me is checking to make sure they're licensed and insured, seeing if there's any complaints with the Better Business Bureau, see if they've done some projects. You go on their website, and I will say all websites look alike. You can't judge a company by its website because, you know, small companies copy the websites of medium-sized companies.
They hire people to make the websites.
Yeah.
So you can't go by what the websites look like. That's
Right.
what you would do to hire a web designer.
Yeah, but you can, that's right. And I would include in that a place of business.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's totally appropriate for a handyman to work out of his house or, you know, a garage, but, you know, the level of office space and the level of the business should reflect the work that they do. The other thing is, you know, a lot of times clients just instinctively say, you know, I want 3 references. And I would suggest that a more helpful thing to do would be to ask to talk to somebody whose project is in design, which is where you're about to be.
Right.
Is in production. So
In the weeds.
Is in the middle of the construction.
Yeah.
And then somebody who's recently completed a project and then completed a project a year ago. So 4 references, because then they can't be cherry picked.
Right.
Because it's easy to give you 4 people who think you're great, but folks that are literally working with this company at that time, you'll get a much better idea of what that experience is like.
I really love that because I had the pleasure of hearing Steve speak at our Northern Virginia Association of Realtors, one of our conferences. He was one of the presenters, and I loved his presentation, which is partly why I asked him to come and be on the show.
Thank you.
And one of the things that I thought was the most interesting that I'd never heard anybody talk about was this whole thing about finding good recommendations, finding good references, and it really is true. You know, to get at all different phases of design. And I mean, it can be stressful. If you're in the middle of a renovation, you're going to be getting the real, you know, info from people about what they're going through, what they wish they knew, what they wish they did differently, how Bowa or whomever helped them, you know, through the hiccups that are always going to come, the unexpected things that are always going to happen. To me, because I deal in real estate and there's always something new in every transaction, and I'm sure it's the same thing with every remodel, it's not if problems arise, it's how you deal with those problems.
Gosh, I couldn't have said that better.
You know, and so I really think it's important, you know, to talk to people at all of those different phases.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You know, what I try to share with clients is it's not that something happens or doesn't happen. It's how does that person handle it.
Yeah.
And I would suggest to you, with 32 years of experience and over $600 million in residential renovations, we've almost seen it all, and we've certainly solved it all. And so I feel, you know, really confident about that.
Well, and I'll say, I think that our renovation, by my calculation, since we've been in our house for 4 years, and the people we bought it from were in for 4 years, and the renovation was done by you guys before they moved in, or from the previous homeowners who renovated the house to go on the market, our project is 8 years past, and I'm still very happy. So thank you so much for all of the
Let's
great
do another
renovation.
project at your house.
We just might. It sounds like it's time. Steve, thank you so much for coming out and sharing this wonderful information with our viewers. I think this is one that people will watch again and again. We're going to have clips. We're going to put it on LinkedIn, put it on Facebook, because I just think this is great information. It was a pleasure to have you here.
Ashleigh, it was my great honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That brings us to the end of another episode of Real Estate Uncorked. I hope you liked what we had to say today. And if you did, remember to click on the like and subscribe button. And if you want to be alerted to when any new episodes drop, make sure you click on the little bell. Please keep in touch with me through social media. I'm on Instagram and Facebook as Ashleigh Wehmeyer Realtor. Take care.